Hello, everyone. My name is Joyelle Naomi, and I am the proud mama, homeschooling mama, of a 13-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy. Y'all pray for me. I got teenagers. I got two teenagers. Y'all pray for me. Some of y'all are like, really? Two? That's all you have, Joyelle? You'll be all right. You'll be all right. I think two is enough. But anyway, they are actually really, really great children. And we're getting ready to enter into our 7th year of homeschooling this coming school year, y'all. We made it 7 years. It's been good. It's been good. We've had a lot of ups and downs. But I can honestly say that homeschooling for our family has been the best thing that has happened to our family so far. We have built amazing relationships, and I have seen my children grow and develop in ways that even I could not truly imagine. I knew that, something great would come out of homeschooling, but I couldn't even imagine the milestones, the things that it's been amazing. It's just been really good. So anyway, I'm also the founder and executive director of Denver Independent School here in Denver, Colorado, which we are an independent umbrella school that allows families to school their children at home. And, when we talk about barriers, which I'll get into obviously more deeply as I continue talking, but having this space, so schooling under an umbrella school, at least here in Colorado, gives you some space between a school district or the government and your family, your homeschooling family. And so really you're just responsible to follow any of the policies that the school offers. And we're designed to have a really relaxed policies that allow families to school their Black children the way that they know their Black children need to be schooled and what's best for their Black family, while still having accountability. And so we also support our families by taking some of the daily burden off of the administrative tasks that go along with homeschooling or schooling at home. So we handle all of the immunization records, record keeping, immunizations, test and evaluation scores, and attendance. And we also allow families to decide if they want to do an evaluation instead of a standardized test so that they can evaluate their child or their children against their own progress versus a nationwide group of kids. And so that's really important for our families. For some of our families, that's something that was important to me. Homeschooling my daughter who has some learning differences, putting her in front of a standardized test is not really the best measurement of the amazing intelligence that she has and marker of what she truly has learned. So, putting some of those things in place, giving students this legal status of private school students, essentially, again, allowing families to really do what they need to do for themselves. So we also have an initiative called Black Homeschooling Sustainability Initiative, or BHSI for short. And we really have 3 goals and objectives with that. And the first one is to support academic scholarship around Black families and homeschooling, which is one of the reasons that we have all gathered here today. And so I'm really excited that something like this exists and that we're having conversation around barriers. We have found that, or I should say I have found that, there's really not that, as y'all know, that much scholarship addressing Black families and homeschooling. It's growing, but a lot of times it's surrounded around why Black families are homeschooling, but not necessarily why we're not. So we have launched this year, actually, and that's one of our first priorities is to, really find out why aren't we homeschooling? We're one of the lowest Black families are homeschooling at one of the lowest rates nationwide. We're increasing those numbers, but there's still, again, this idea of what are the barriers? And I think perception is a major barrier as well to us even believing that homeschooling is a viable option for us. So that's the second thing that we do is we educate the community, the Black community, about homeschooling as a viable option, and we create spaces where families can start to have some conversation, where we can say, hey, what would it look like if you could just dream about homeschooling? What could that look like for you? And to bring current homeschooling families into the conversation so that we're not really coming in saying, hey, this is the model, this is the formula to be able to homeschool, but instead to give parents and students and children the space to say what it is that they need, to identify what their own barriers are, and then collectively we problem solve with each other. So then the third thing that we do is we are seeking to provide grants and scholarships to our families that they can use without a whole lot of strings attached. There's already not a whole lot of grants and scholarships out there for families homeschooling directly, funds that can directly come into our hands, let alone grants and scholarships that are designed just for Black families. But when you do try to apply for some of the scholarships that do exist, y'all, it can be exhausting trying to get through an application. If you are not careful to dot all of your I's and cross all of your T's, you can, be disqualified. There's such stipulations on how you can use the money. You can only, say for instance, use it for curriculum, but only this type of curriculum. There's not always a fluid idea of what learning is, and that learning can happen any and everywhere, not just in front of a textbook, and especially for Black children. Our people like to experience things. We like to put our hands to stuff and get in there and be communal. And when you put stipulations on, you just got to buy a math book, you got to buy X, Y, and Z, it can be really stifling and not as beneficial as it could be. So we want to provide funds that you can use however you need to use those funds to create a sustainable homeschooling environment for your children and for your family. Some of those scholarships certainly do not allow you to use those funds for bills like your utility bill or rent or your car payment. But if being able to use those funds helps you to be able to do what you need to do with your kids, what you believe is the best for your children, then we want to say, go ahead and do it. So I'm speaking a lot about what we do because all of those things that we are seeking to do and that we do are designed to be solutions to break down barriers. Listen to this. Break down barriers to our access, or to families having the access to their right to homeschool. And I am very, very particular to frame it in that context. Because again, I talked about perception. Let me put it like this. So none of us watching this, I could imagine, would disagree with the statement that fair and equal and equitable housing is a human right. It is a right that all humans should have access to. We say that some people that have that type of housing are having the privilege of having access to that, but we don't frame it in the sense that, the ability and the privilege is something that's over there and good for them, but we're not really going to advocate and fight for everybody to have the housing that they deserve and that they need because it's a privilege for certain people. We're like, nah, it should not be a privilege for certain people. It should be accessible to everybody. But so often when I talk to Black families about homeschooling as a viable option, that's how it's framed. That's the perception that comes out, is that homeschooling is a privilege for some people over there, but not for Black families. The most common theme that comes up is that because we have to work, because we can't afford it, because homeschooling is expensive, and because we can't be staying home with our kids. We gotta go out there and make them coins, right? But homeschooling is legal in all 50 states. It is a right. You can choose whether you put your kid in public school, in a private school, if you want to do a charter school. You have the right to do that, as well as you have the right to homeschool your children. So this is why I'm excited that we're having a conversation around what the barriers are to accessing homeschooling, but I just want to throw in there accessing our right to homeschool. We really need to start to think about reframing and just changing our perspective around homeschooling, and also seeing homeschooling as a form of resistance to systemic, a system that is designed to really not for our kids not to thrive in. So yes, I hope that this was helpful and informative, and I am just so grateful to all of you for attending and for having me speak on this subject. And let's work together and do whatever we have to do to make sure that our people have what we need to school our children at home, because they're worth it. We're worth it. All right. God bless everyone.